our website and I will.
And then we can make sure that the sound and the video are both working. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this evening's presentation. This is session number 4 for the Wheatland Lodge and Hospice facility. We will be starting this evening's presentation in about 5 minutes, so just keep reading along for all the recap information and we'll see you soon.
Thank you everyone for joining us today for the fourth of 5 community engagement sessions for the new Wheatland Lodge and Hospice Care Facility. My name is Caitlin Wilson and I'm the interior designer here at Barry Architecture.
Once again, I'm Isaac Martinez and I'm an architect here at Barry Architecture and Associates.
And behind the camera, we have Tracy Evans, who's helping us out as well. So last Thursday, we held the third session, which focused on the resident neighborhoods and suites. We heard great ideas presented on how we can make the most out of these really important areas. So tonight, we're looking forward to continuing getting your input to help us define the social architecture for this project. The agenda for tonight's presentation is, we'll do a quick Zoom refresher. Isaac will introduce us today's topic, then we'll open the floor for you guys to answer some of the questions we have, and then we'll wrap it up by 8 p.m. So before we get going with the event, I will give a refresher on using Zoom. So given the challenges of doing a community engagement session remotely, we're going to keep everyone muted, and you can use the chat function or use the raise your hand function if you'd like to speak your comment out loud. So if you're on a desktop computer, the icons will look similar to the image on the left. And if you're using your smartphone or tablet, you will have to click the 3 dots, and then the menu for the chat or raise your hand will pop up as well. We encourage you all to turn on your cameras so we kind of can see some faces while we do these sessions, and also provide your input out loud. As well as if you have any technical difficulties during the presentation, we are recording this session and we'll be uploading it to the project website before noon tomorrow. Here's a few faces. Thanks.
Okay, so let's get going. If you guys been following us during these sessions, you guys know that our goal is to understand the social and cultural context of Strathmore and the Wheatland County in order to shape the project's vision. So with your input, we're working together to look at the different levels of the social architecture. As you know now, it will shape the physical architecture of this project. We started with the site context on session 1, then we moved inward to the communal spaces during session 2, and then the resident neighborhoods during the session 3. And then now, this evening, we will discuss the different levels of social architecture as it relates to the hospice care facility. So we will continue to use the question, how does the built environment promote healthy living and sustainable communities as it relates to the hospice care facility? While we're answering this question, we also want you to consider how these design decisions can foster strong relationships between the staff, residents, families, and the community. Even though people stay in hospice for short periods of time, it's important to foster relationships to ensure family and friends have the right support they need when dealing with the imminent death of a loved one.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society, they were formed in 2015 to support the dream of creating hospice for Wheatland and surrounding area. Building upon the foundation laid by the Shedley Lions Clubs, Wheatland Area and Hospice Society grew within the Wheatland community and established partnerships with Alberta Health Services and other organizations in the area. So their vision is to recognize death as a part of life, and their mission is to provide hospice care to those in their final stages of life.
Okay, so we want to ask us, what is palliative care? It is a philosophy of care with a focus on helping people feel and function as well as possible while living with a progressive, usually incurable illness. It can take place at home or in a hospital setting, and typically starts between 3 or 12 months before death. Hospice care is the care provided to an individual and their family when they're approaching a period of time closer to death. Services aimed at comfort are intensified, and typical starts 2 weeks before death.
For For the hospice care facility, we will use the same 4 design principles that we used for the lodge to help us determine what are the important design decisions. As well as these principles will help us guide us through the design process and into the construction of the facility to ensure that we are delivering what the community needs and wants. So the first design principle is functional independence. The built environment supports individuals' remaining abilities with dignity and respect. Second one is engagement. Indoor and outdoor environments create opportunities for meaningful activities and fosters healthy relationships. 3, health and safety. Interior design elements and furnishings are responsive to both the mental and physical health of people. And lastly, we have quality of life. The built environment will support the emotional well-being and social, cultural, and spiritual needs of each person and family.
Okay, so we'll start asking the questions now. Tonight, we will start asking questions related to the patient first. And then we will move to family and friends, staff and volunteers, and then the community. So for the first question we want to hear is, how can the built environment support patients with dignity and respect? With that same question is, what types of design elements in the residence rooms would enhance their quality of life?
So remember, you guys can use the raise your hand function if you'd like to give your response out loud, or if you're more comfortable typing in your answers, feel free to do that as well, and we'll have Tracy Evans read them out loud to us. Gentleman is raising his hand.
Somebody raising their hand, I guess somebody wants to give us some thoughts. That would be great.
You can see. Just maybe pull the screen back to you. There you go.
Oh, that is me that unmutes, okay.
Yeah, either way, we can unmute you and you can unmute yourself.
I was just trying to find you on the list, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, Keith Clayton here.
Good night.
Your windows should all be to the ground or right down to the bottom floor so that people in beds can see outside.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. I love that.
A couple more answers that have now come in as well. Need high quality beds as patients are probably bedridden.
Yep.
How about a whiteboard to write messages on?
Yep, that's a lovely idea.
Mm-hmm.
Soft and warm lighting, dimmable lighting, warm colors.
Having lots of control over your light will be really beneficial.
An environment that helps them feel a part of family and community, as well as giving them opportunity to be private when they wish.
Yeah, the flexibility will be great for sure.
Comfortable furnishings and rooms that provide privacy. Murphy bed in the room, different organizations for designing or furnishing rooms. In brackets, the Foothills Hospice. Comfy furniture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody else would like to have another, give us some thoughts? I think somebody raising the hand again.
It's the same character, actually, Keith here.
Okay, great.
You should have a piece of furniture in the room that allows a person to stay overnight with the person in hospice.
Exactly, yeah. So something for a space for a family or friend to spend the night. Yes, definitely.
Either a couch that folds out or a bed system that does allow them to stay, yes.
Yeah.
And a couple more here as well. Adequate space so that family can stay overnight with them. Either their own bed or a couple's bed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shelves for personal items, doors to the outside.
Excellent, yeah, some connection to the outdoors is great.
What should the view from the windows or from the garden doors be of? Should it be of parking lot? Should it be of some nice gardens? Like, what are your thoughts on what should that view out those windows be for the patient, resident?
Colors?
Yeah,
What kind of colors? Should we gonna choose more like vibrant colors or more peaceful and tranquil colors? So
and I guess the use of the landscape outside, right, can give you that different set of tones and colors as the seasons go through. So, yes.
Right, so a couple answers for the views question. I believe nature is always a welcome view. Views should be of garden space, trees, water. Views need to be pastoral, gardens, fields, etc. We like the room on the bottom left.
okay,
That's from Judy.
perfect.
Views need to be as pleasant as possible. Will the beds be able to roll outside?
I think that's great. Yeah, it would be excellent if you can actually be able to take that bed out into maybe a semi-private outer space. That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure that the opening is big enough for the bed to go outside. That's a good idea.
Nature view, birds, garden views.
So no parking lots, right? Make sure it's protected by nature scenes, and yeah, for sure. That sounds great. So to recap, it sounds like we have full height windows that go down to the ground, doors that are wide enough to roll a patient bed outside to the garden, lots of soft and warm furnishings, some sort of space for a family or friend to be comfortable enough to spend the night, a whiteboard to write messages,
Nice colors.
nice colors.
And then a couple last minute comments coming in. That speaks to each room having their own exit to green space.
Yeah.
And also this conversation implies all rooms would be ground floor.
Sure does.
That's
Which
correct.
because we really are looking at doing a handful of suites, that having them on the ground floor is very achievable to do so.
And important for sure to achieve the desired results.
The ability to hang pictures, could have balconies, coffee and tea station, small fridge.
A little kitchenette inside there. Yeah, that would be good. Even some way to hang pictures, so you can quickly insert pictures or constantly on the wall and switch it out. That's a really good idea too.
Love the idea of suites, means more space.
I guess we had somebody raising their hand.
Should have a lockable location for keeping valuables for the person in the hospice.
Definitely, yeah, some storage spaces to keep some
Not
valuables.
storage, but lockable.
Lockable, yeah,
Okay.
very smart. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, great.
That's great. So we'll move on to our second question. So how can the built environment support family and friends' emotional well-being? So last question focused directly on the patient, the resident, and how we can improve their quality of life during the time in the hospice. But now we also need to make sure that we are supporting friends and family. So what can we design that's specifically for them?
Okay, any thoughts yet?
A couple coming in now. So a spiritual space.
Creating some sort of spiritual care room will be really important to have available for friends and families.
Great.
A small, quiet, relaxing space. Having gathering spaces that provide privacy for family and friends outside of individual rooms.
Yes.
Family to be able to visit from the outside window.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
And that definitely connects back to the windows and being on the ground floor. Yeah, it's
Little private spaces, private garden spaces.
Yep.
A room for family to meet with professionals or the care staff.
yes,
Okay.
having
Council
private
space.
counseling grief rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your pictures show a kitchen. I see this as a nice feature for families coming from longer distances.
Yes. So it'd be nice to have the opportunities for families to cook for themselves if there's a special dish they're willing to make to kind of bring people together, or also the opportunity for them to be cooked for.
Again, the opportunity to gather and be involved in areas such as kitchen to participate in cooking.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Consider a smoking room for both patients and family.
Smoking room, okay.
We've heard that for the lodge too.
A designated smoking area, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And potentially can be, you know, other spaces like a resident laundry area. I guess that could be another option.
If family and friends are staying with their loved one for an extended period of time, what kinds of things do you think that they're going to need? So Isaac just suggested that a resident laundry room is one. What other items do you think people would need to be able to care for themselves during their time
To
here?
stay there, yeah.
Showers, access to the pub in the lodge,
Well,
Where's
yeah,
that pop again?
maybe
Yes.
access to a computer so families can connect
yeah,
should they
computer
not have
space.
access at the time.
Yeah,
Ability to order a meal from the lodge side.
Yep.
I like the kitchen so family can meet loved ones' altered nutritional needs at various times of day or night.
Yep.
Quality Wi-Fi.
Quality Wi-Fi, yeah, definitely.
yeah, to make sure everyone's staying connected, definitely. Yeah, I like the idea of the shower rooms. I think that'd be really important, just to give family or friends just a place where they can disconnect from the situation and kind of refresh and regenerate their energy. And just the feeling clean just really helps improve your well-being. Options to make sure that you're able to have meals or snacks according to your schedule. Things can be very chaotic and hectic, and just the access to food would be great. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Should have the ability to get out with people so that they're not always alone in the room. Not everybody's totally bedridden when they're in the hospice.
Yeah, you're right. So we can look at having the resident rooms, instead of being down a long hallway, have them open up onto a central gathering space so that there is some connectivity to what's happening, and be easier for people to go and join in with what's happening outside of the rooms.
Area to sleep for out-of-town family outside of the patient's room.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's another sleeping room.
Yeah, we also heard that for the lodge as well, to have a few suites that you could rent out. So that would be a great idea.
Some form of entertainment or an area for young children.
Yes, an option for child
Child
minding
minding, yeah.
would be really good to have. Probably take a lot of stress off families, just to know that their young children have a safe place to go.
Great.
Fantastic. Any other final comments? It sounds like we talked about having a place to eat, to cook or to be cooked for, showers, quality Wi-Fi, access to computers, and child minding, spiritual care room, and counseling spaces, and maybe some small to large living room type spaces to connect with other people.
One last final comment here for this one. An impression I have of hospice is it is about continuing to live your life even at this stage of life.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
most definitely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great.
So moving on to the next question, we want to ask, how can the design of the hospice support staff, this includes volunteers, in order to ensure their physical and mental health are being met?
Maybe if there's people who are joining in that have volunteered themselves in a hospice or have worked in there, if you want to share a story about your experience and what things really helped you feel comfortable and feel supported while working here, that would be great to hear too.
Yeah, for sure.
So a private area for staff and volunteers to rest.
Yeah,
Yeah, having a
a staff room.
place to decompress for the day would be really important.
A central space for staff to be able to be close to all patients and readily meet their needs.
Yeah.
Provide space where they can rest and feel what they are feeling.
Yep.
Mhm.
Separate areas for staff and volunteers. Make sure that volunteers know that there are people they can talk to within a private, comfy area.
Yeah.
Any comments on like a patient to nurse ratio? So you might have experience working in hospice and how many patients you were looking after, and kind of what works well, what doesn't work so well.
Yeah, is anybody joining us that could, that is staff or volunteering that will give us some other thoughts? That would be great as well.
What about a place to play some music? If you're just kind of having a hard day and you really connect with music, maybe there's a space to play the piano or just sing that can kind of redirect your attention and maybe gather people in a different way. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Need a secure space for medications and client files that's lockable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Looks like Ruth says it's very difficult as patient needs will vary significantly. But on the other hand, Judy says 1 palliative RN to 4 patients.
Yeah. And that's what we've heard too. We've also heard that if we do 1 to 4 patient to nurse ratio, that it makes it challenging because then there's one RN who's working alone. They could be working the night shift alone. There's no one else there with them.
Yeah.
So if we bumped it up to make sure there's more residents available to stay in the facility, then that RN would have to be working alone.
And that's from a nurse that's listening in right now.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
Staff is a significant part of operating cost.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, any other thoughts?
Plus HCA, home care assistance. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah. So when you guys are mentioning that the staff and volunteers need their own private space, what kinds of items should be in this private space?
Sorry, HCA, healthcare aid.
Perfect.
Storage spaces for equipment that remains on site, such as oxygen, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely it's important that the design supports all the staff and volunteers because it will make the operations more efficient and ensure that everybody, could be supported as they need it. Yeah.
So should things like the staff room, should it be in a windowless room, like in the basement, down the hallway? Or should it have views into the garden and have tables and chairs and soft furnishings? Does it need to have a kitchenette in there? Do they need their own showers and lockers? Like, you can say we need a space for the staff, but like, what do they actually need within that room to support their physical and mental health?
Extra blankets, blanket warmers, TV,
Yeah.
radio, bed, kitchen, fridge. Staff will need a utility room.
Okay,
Great.
okay, thank you.
So we know that hospice care groups are always looking for ways to promote education around palliative and hospice care to help combat the stigma surrounding death and dying. So in order for the hospice care facility to be successful, the support of the community is much needed to ensure it is sustainable now as well as in the future. So how can we design this facility to welcome the community into the hospice care facility? And maybe what types of roles do you think as a community you guys can volunteer for or offer support towards?
Support teams may need a meeting space. Provide volunteer opportunities for gardening, recreational therapy, baking, gaming, reading. Design with the ability to do tours.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the activities that you can provide there will allow some volunteers to come in and help out to provide those sort of different activities. Yeah.
Gardening, spending time with children, music area that people can come and play in. Why would the community come into the hospice?
Yeah, so this just kind of just goes back into just having the community's buy into the hospice care facility to ensure that it is a sustainable facility. And also it's just that the hospice is really trying to make people just more comfortable around death, because death is part of our life. And that way that when people do have to come and use the services, that they've already made connections with it and they'll just be more comfortable in this environment. So,
Yeah, and I guess as well as as the community get involved, they had a better understanding of the services, what it's about to be the hospice. So kind of feel more comfortable, you say, just to go in there and also to promote the hospice, right, within the community. So I think it allows to learn and to, help if possible and get a better understanding of the services provided.
And as said in one of the comments here, company for patients that are alone.
Yes, as well.
exactly.
Design an education room that is accessible to public at all time. Where are these resources? What about pets?
Pets.
Marcy says it is important that we see death as a part of the circle of life rather than something that is kept hidden.
Yes, very much so. So yes, we have some great ideas on how people can participate and be a part. So I like the idea of gardening. Lots of the maintaining the landscaping for these gardens that we talk about will take a lot of time and energy. So if there's people in the community who are avid gardeners and they would love to take care of a little area, then the hospice would appreciate that. People coming in to bake or to cook. So we know we want these kitchens, but just to have someone in there baking and cooking and to kind of get the smells, and it's more like positive associations with the smells of like freshly cooked treats and foods. and making sure that you're kind of creating those connections too.
Yeah, just like the music too, right? If somebody comes and plays some music and you have the space for that, that brings a good other opportunity for volunteering, another type of activity for the hospice.
And then when you're volunteering those activities, in turn, you were like uplifting the spirits of the staff and the family and friends and of the residents who live there as well. So just kind of really building a really strong community within here.
Yeah, pets for sure.
Yeah.
The education room could be multi-purpose for groups to come and deliver music and spiritual services.
Yeah.
Quilting guilds, quilts mean hospice. Okay. Ability to keep rooms closed from outside if patients and families wish. What elements need to be considered with bringing animals in when individuals, visitors, or residents might be highly allergic? I know pets create a vital link to the last moments.
Yeah, for sure, something to consider.
Yeah, I'm certain Alberta Health Services has some protocols around pets in these types of facilities. So even I wonder if because we have access directly outside for the patient rooms that the pet can come in directly that way, or because we are looking at having this hospice connected to the lodge, that maybe there is a safe spot for some pets to come in and for people to move into a safe space to kind of interact with the pets. So we have some options, I think.
You can bring them through the outside door, HPA filters.
Yeah, some good airflow and mechanical systems to help get all those allergens for sure.
Excellent, thank you. So we have here one poll for you guys tonight. So we want to ask you the question, how connected should the lodge be to the hospice care facility? So just want to ask you the question, take a few minutes to think about it. How connected should the lodge, the new Wheatland Lodge, be to the hospice and the care facility? Give us a few minutes.
Just about 50% of the votes in, so we'll give it a little bit longer here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you're answering this question, you can think about how the architecture is like physically connected or operationally connected as well. So should they be two standalone facilities on the same site, or should they interact with each other at some level?
Okay, I'm curious to see where we're going now and see what everybody thinks.
Another couple of seconds here. We're about 75% of the way there, so close, but
Yeah, you need
a
to
few more people, a little bit more time.
take your time to think about it and see what your first thoughts are right now. Okay, we'll see if we have pretty close to get everybody's answer.
78%. So right now we are sitting at 73% of people would prefer integrated.
Okay.
Over 27% wanting a standalone. So
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, that's interesting to hear because this is going to lead us to our next question. Listening that the majority will see some type of integration between the new lodge and the hospice. So yeah, we definitely see some great synergies, and I guess that will lead us to the next question.
Okay. So the question is, what synergies should exist between the lodge and the hospice. So think about how they physically can be connected, maybe what spaces could be shared with the lodge, anything along those lines. And if you were one of the people who said that it should be a standalone facility, it'd be great to hear why you like to see them to be a standalone facility.
So while people are kind of going through that, I'll give a couple of the answers that were also coming through during the poll.
Yeah.
So access to patients during a pandemic can be physically connected but separate. I know cost increases if they're separate. However, would IMO be ideal if they were close but not attached?
Okay.
Needs to be attached if we are sharing staff, food, etc.
Yep.
Separate entrances.
Oh, yeah.
Housekeeping, food service, and utilities can be shared and more economical.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
There is definitely benefit in operational costs. Maintenance, such as snow removal, etc. Housekeeping, laundry, gardens. Some share facilities such as a kitchen or resources for residents. Parking, security, landscaping, snow removal, heating, kitchen, nursing, administration.
So yeah, it really makes sense that a lot of these support spaces could be shared. The back of house elements and those amenities that are supporting the operations of the facilities, that in my opinion makes sense that they could be shared.
Yeah. Closer access to the pub if connected.
Who is this pub guy? I want to say it's my boss George behind the camera here, but
Definitely the pub is something that needs to have some synergies from what we hear. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the idea of sharing some of the operational costs. So having the commercial kitchen, the commercial laundry, some of the landscaping and maintenance and parking, all accessible, but those items could be accessible from the back of the building and not where residents and their families would come across those items on a daily basis. Someone commented about still having access to patients during any flu outbreaks or in our case, the pandemic right now. But yeah, we can do that by ensuring that we have these smaller little neighborhoods, much like we talked about with the lodge having neighborhoods of a certain amount of residents, create like a cohort in there to make sure that people can safely visit loved ones.
So we heard also about separate entrances. They should be totally separate? Should they be shared? Maybe have some internal connections. What about other thoughts regarding that main entry to these facilities?
Different staff offices has also come in, as well as different energies exist between lodge and hospice. Once again, in my opinion, I envision J-short walkways to connect.
Okay.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Maybe like a plus 20 to 21 headways and stuff to connect the two spaces together, so that people who are kind of like the staff who are in the kitchens and the laundries, and maybe staff who work in between the hospice and lodge, that they can still quickly get into either side of the building.
Separate entrances would most patients be brought in by ambulance.
So that's something to think about, is that the residents living in the lodge, how comfortable would they have people arriving and leaving the hospice care from their same entrance? So whether, it's just that comfort level of seeing death.
Facilities should be attached with the ability to move back and forth without going outside. Spouses in both facilities should be able to move from one another, one facility to the other freely. it would be nice to have resident access to the hospice if friends might be there.
Are there any specific spaces or amenities that should not be shared, that should be, each of these facilities should have their own? Is there any specific amenities like that?
So we've got one person here who wants to speak, so.
Yes, great.
Nicole, you can go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm currently a palliative home care nurse in Strathmore. And the reason I advocate for separate entrances is people aren't just coming in with their loved ones, people are leaving when their loved ones have died. And whenever I'm sending anybody to hospices in Calgary, the ones that are attached to long-term care facilities, my first question from these people is, how do I get in? Do I have to go through all those people? It's a huge barrier and a huge thing that people do not want to do. And many people will not go to those hospices because they are already attached. Even if I tell them that there's separate entrances and exits, it's a big barrier. So I think it's vitally important that there are separate entrances and exits. I do hear that residents may want to visit, but it has to be a private space separate from the lodge. As for people coming by ambulance, some do. As other people say, people are still living at the hospice as well. They're not just there in their last few days. So some people are not coming in by ambulance. But again, that's a reason for a separate entrance, to have access for an ambulance to bring somebody in, where the whole lodge is not watching someone come through the front door.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That's excellent. That's kind of information that we really need to hear different perspectives of the two. So yeah, just having that understanding that when you are visiting a loved one in hospice, it's not your best day. And you're right, having to walk through a crowd of people who could be like celebrating a holiday. You don't want to walk through people playing games just to get to your loved ones. So yeah, having this dedicated entrance would be really important.
Does anybody else have other thoughts related to this? Yes?
I've visited a few that have been attached to the senior homes, and they've all said they wanted separate entrances as far as the hospice was concerned, but they wanted to be connected to the facility of the seniors so they could share the right facilities. So you got to have it both ways to make it work.
Yeah. So maybe there's a way that we can have like a main entry into the hospice, but this secondary entrance from the lodge is a bit more private. It's not connected to a major busy popular area. It's just kind of down a quiet hallway. So you still are keeping that separate and private, and just being really respectful to the people who are in the hospice care area.
Yeah, I think with the separate, you can have your separate entries, and definitely you can have an internal connection, right? That there's possibility to have those synergies that we've been hearing, but definitely be able to have that separation when needed. So you have to have that balance between both synergies.
And perhaps not all hospice patients will come from the lodge.
Of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Marcy, did you have something you wanted to say there? I see you're unmuted.
Yes, I did. My experience with hospice, both for my father and my niece, was in a facility where we came in through the same entrance as everyone, but it was up a couple of floors and in a separate wing all by itself. And I look at that also, that I don't think there was any awareness in the public areas that I walked through, right, of that. And so I really think the layout of the facility is going to make a significant difference. In this case, because it was a multi-story building and had 3 wings, much larger than what I anticipate we're building here in our area.
Right. Yeah. So that's a really great point. So when we do get to move on to the next stage of the design process, that I think there'll be a really good opportunity to bring everyone back for another community engagement to show some of our floor plan layouts, to seeing if the circulation and the pathways that we're proposing, if you all feel that they are appropriate for the space. So,
Jan, I see you've also unmuted yourself there. If you'd like to go ahead and say something here.
Thank you. I would like to echo Nicole's comments. I'm actually a nurse and I work at the hospital. And at the time of death, if you don't have a separate entrance and exit, sometimes the families that are in the throes of grief have to parade past everybody else. And it's not so much that the others are celebrating, it's that, you know, it's a private time in their grief and they're at their worst and they have to walk by sometimes crowds of people.
yeah, thank you for sharing. So I think going based on that theme, we've talked about how like operationally sharing spaces with the lodge would be great. So, but are there any spaces other than the entrances that should not be shared with the lodge?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's again, right, maybe there's the spaces that each of the facilities should have their own. And yeah, we'll go to hear some of that.
I think one like I'll throw out is in the lodge we talked about having a spiritual care room. Do you think it's appropriate for the lodge and the hospice to share that room, or should there be two separate ones?
Couple coming in, staff room, separate staff rooms. I see a shared kitchen area as separate.
Okay.
Private, quiet space for each. The hospice should have a separate wing from the lodge as well.
Yes.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think if we're able to keep the family kitchen and the living room spaces and some of the grief counseling rooms, those all can be standalone for the hospice only, but maybe spaces like the pub can stay in the lodge, and the public games more active, that maybe those are the ones that are appropriate to share with the lodge.
Separate kitchen area and spiritual spaces, separate medicine or equipment rooms.
Yeah.
On the other hand, separate everything.
Okay. Great, thank you. Now, if there's any other thoughts on this?
Anything relating back to the other questions that has popped up in your head based on like the patient rooms or amenities for family and friends? Feel free to throw in any ideas that are kind of just thinking of now.
So just a quick thought from Joni. Thanks everyone. We really appreciate your input. Everyone's ideas and suggestions are fantastic.
Yeah.
Gordon says, if everything is separate, where is the synergy?
Exactly, yeah.
That's the main question. So, so maybe now that we've talked about all these ideas, now people are kind of coming back to the idea that maybe it should be separate. Let's relaunch the same poll, and we'll see if we get a different response this time. So Tracy, throw it up there for them.
And while everybody's throwing in some more votes again there, Marcy's asking, will these rooms be larger than the rooms in the lodge?
Yes.
Like the suites?
Yes. They will have to be larger. There will be an increased use of medical equipment, and we need a place for family and friends to stay as well. So it will be larger.
We'll see if anybody changing their mind or still will have the same similar results after this great discussions.
About 60% of the votes in, so give it another minute or so.
Somebody raising their hand again, please.
Yeah, just one of the things I've seen in a number of places is the residents of a hospice, some still require an access to exercise of various kinds, whether it be standalone or assisted. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that there is a component that people will be comfortable sharing with the lodge, if the lodge is able to offer some physio or massage therapies, that the residents of the hospice could utilize that or join for like chair yoga even, if that's possible. Yeah, good comment.
A couple comments here related to the poll. I feel like we're missing an option. Is there a middle ground? Some agreement, a mix of some separate and some together.
Yeah.
And that's great, because I think that's we wanted to see, and from the discussions that we're having, that's what we're seeing, right? That maybe that there should be a middle ground.
Yeah.
It's not totally the opposite pole, it should be some middle ground, as we've been hearing.
Yeah.
So we got about 75% votes in here. So right now we're sitting at about 84% are agreeing with the integrated on some level, and 16 for the standalone.
Okay.
And another comment, separate areas do not mean that synergies do not exist. Again, parking, security, housekeeping, landscaping, snow removal, heating.
Yeah.
And that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Most definitely. I think that's a good point, that we want the hospice to be sustainable and successful and to work for the community, but there is really high operational costs when it comes to things like your commercial kitchens and your laundries, and just all the additional square footage required for certain amenities to make family and friends stay as comfortable as possible. So it sounds like we are pushing for an integrated facility, but being very respectful and cognizant of what things should be shared. So we've established that it should be its own kind of micro neighborhood on its own, where there's living room, grief counseling spaces, and a kitchen, along with the residence suites and its own separate entrance, but then to be connected to the whole lodge as one working community.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your input. Please join us for our last community session that will be on November 5th, next Thursday. So we will be giving a recap of all the information gathering from each of the sessions. Again, if you have any specific topics or things that you want us to touch base on next week's session, please feel free to let us know right now, or to any specifics for the design, the interior design of the project. Again, if you have any additional comments, please fill out the questionnaire that will be available starting Friday to Monday at noon on the project website. As well, as you guys know, this session will be uploaded to the project website within the next 24 hours. Thank you for joining us. And again, we look forward to see you next week for the recap and the final session.
Thank you guys. Thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone who left their cameras on and joined in on the conversation. It's kind of nice to be able to connect with some people face to face, even though we're far away from each other. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the input.